Hello boys and girls, Big Mac is here and you already see who is our guest today. After around 100 hours in game, I can finally say that I'm ready to say my opinion on Cyberpunk 2077. So get your popcorn, sit down samurai, we have a city to burn. Right from the beginning, our goal today is actually to decide, is Cyberpunk 2077 is the game of the year, or is it actually the disappointment of the year like some of the people saying? I already have my opinion, but let me just say it first and then you will decide. You maybe already decide since you already played it, but believe me, after hundreds of hours of game, I have a lot of stuff to say. Cyberpunk 2077 is arguably the most anticipated game of the decade, arriving just a decade date before the new decade starts in 2021. Announced in 2012, god how long was that? And in produce since 2015 or so, CD Projekt Red's latest title is focused, detailed and quite obviously lovingly crafted RPG. Yet, remarkably, even with all the hype it managed to generate over the years, it mostly delivers. A big statement coming in. A handcrafted and a cinematic journey through the dystopian futuristic metropolis of the Night City, Cyberpunk is the first-person shooter RPG about the character named V, set in the wonderfully created open world. That's right, a handcrafted cinematic, which means a heavy narrative scripted sequences, handcrafted moments, and more importantly a lot of permitted outcomes. Cyberpunk 2077 feels a lot like Fallout 4, where an overreaching story and block story guides your decision and streamlines choices in some key points. You don't have choices to say yes or no, as the game literally requires to respond in a certain way. You get 2 or 3 options that are all different ways of saying yes, and in all roads lead to Rome manor. Cyberpunk is ridiculously immersive, from the sheer sense of the scale in the city to the way 90% of the action have first-person animations. Night City doesn't feel like a place to be seen, but a place to be experienced. Driving and especially walking around the metropolis feels straight out of E3 game, with crowd of people swarming amid towering skyscrapers, flying cars, trains, billboards, and a lot of skycrosses in the sky. It is unbelievably dynamic, and it would almost feel scripted if it didn't happen almost every single time you stop to take your place in your surroundings. In fact, that immersiveness is undoubtedly one of the Cyberpunk 2077's strongest suits. Everything from driving, walking, to climbing, to shooting takes place in the first person. Well, except from the driving, there you have an option with the third person view of course. Creating a consistent perspective and lending some serious physicality to the world, as you sprint around an area during the fight, sliding behind an object, popping out from the cover to shoot a mermaid of enemies around you. And you cannot help yourself but you feel like you're in a game trailers. Except you're playing it. Interestingly, this feeling isn't due to the gameplay mechanics themselves. Cyberpunk 2077 is a game similar to many others, and it does not reinvent the wheel. It really doesn't. Instead, it achieves that through the mix of fantastic graphics and very tight combat mechanics, as if Far Cry 2 and Fallout 4 got together one day, and an extremely pretty baby. Guns are extremely satisfactory to shoot, processing a remarkably kick and weight that mirrors game like, let's say, Rainbow Six Siege, in sheer terms of weapon feedback. Cyberware in your augmented inventory, similar to Deus Ex legendary upgrade menu. In Cyberpunk 2077, virtually everyone is modified to a certain degree, and this expansive prosthetic plug into every part of your body. You can affect your perception by modding your nerve system, increase inventory capacity, jumping height, or do a double jump for example, or by modding your legs, and even do a rocket launcher into your wrist. God, how silly does this sound? But believe me, it looks really cool. There are literally hundreds of mods to combine, but the most important and incredibly main operating system is to increase the amount of quick hack slots you have, as well as you have much RAM so you can use them during the combat. Speaking of combat, that is both of one Cyberpunk 2070's strongest and weakest points. As mentioned, the guns feel remarkably fun to use, and the game makes a good job of adding these types of weapons. Power, which ricochet, then you have tech weapon which let you narrowly charge the bullets of more power shots. Then there is smart weapons, which basically are bullets that are like leading to your enemy, something like an aimbot but in real life, and then you're not cheating basically. And being honest, closer to the end of the game, those smart weapons were my favorites. Where in the middle of the game, I was all the time trying to put them away, trying to sell them and all the stuff like that. You can see, Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't want you to do things in a single way. Yes, you technically can go with the guns only, spend 500 bullets while fighting through people, but that will quickly distract you from the in-game bank account and your enjoyment. The game is designed to mix and match approaches. Hit someone with an overlord hug to burn them alive, shoot them dead with a headshot, hit someone else with the torso a few times before shot them circularly in their brain to finish them off. This not only makes fights more dynamic and fun, but also partly solves an issue of enemies eating lead as if they were Frosties for breakfast. As bad and frustrating as stealth could be, and the bullet sponge combat is, outside of that, during the mid or late game open combat, Cyberpunk shines. The characters, narrative, general weight writing and Super B, and virtually every named character you talk to is somewhat remarkable. Believe me, closer to the end of the game or closer to the mid of the game, I literally knew everyone's storyline. Whenever I come to someone, I already know what they want, what do they like, how do they behave. And this is kinda low-key helps you with the dialogues they're having with these characters. And even better, the actual story mission beats are extremely cinematographic, with the camera work, dialogue choices and the music all coming together to create an unbelievably exciting sequences of events. It doesn't even need to be during the action scenes. Mind you, the game has pertinent to put you in a car with an NPC and let you chat to them as they drive. In that moment, the range from the again to holy crap, that's beautiful. The desert missions are especially good for that. And the game writing truly shines when it decides to go full emotional with its plot beats. For example, when I'm mentioning the desert missions, obviously the missions with Panam and all of Aldecaldo gang. They are really very personal. You're literally getting very close with each of the gang members from the Aldecaldo, and especially with Panam. Anyway, to be honest, the huge part of the impact comes from the graphics and the design of the sound, obviously. Not only the voice acting, soundtrack and non-sound effects like top notch, but the game build in 5.1 support is amazing. As we're using the home theater, the directional audio implementation and the way headset's voice comes from the back left are inevitably immersive. The actual game visuals are also breathtaking, as Cyberpunk 2077 is full of Nvidia's DSS and ray tracing compatibilities. To be honest, this all comes from the partnership of Cyberpunk 2077 and Nvidia. So meaning this, you obviously have the best experience playing on PC with Nvidia graphic card, but at the same time, I can say that I played the game fully on PS5 also, finished it, and I can say that the game was pretty nice. The graphics was amazing and everything, and I didn't experience that much of the visual problems that you have on the PS4. This is actually a very interesting thing, that the game is actually in a format of the PS4 version played on PS5, but at the same time this version actually works perfect. I feel like this is something that you have like case of Cyberpunk 2077 with the medium graphics played on the PS5, while we having the next gen version coming later on this year. Obviously you cannot give a mark to Cyberpunk 2077 without mentioning its a big success. Obviously I'm joking, with the past games consoles. I want to say, you can judge the game accordingly to that, but at the same time, this is not the experience you want to live in. And maybe in the future the game will be patched. Anyway, there is a lot of big problems, obviously speaking, as we already started this topic. Graphics aren't a big problem when you're using a good cards or PS5 or the next gen consoles overall. But obviously the bugs is another thing. Of course, already after almost a month after the game was released, you have already tons of patches and the companies keep on working every day and every week just to release any new updates to make the game more polished. But we all know that we have already this opinion that Cyberpunk was a little bit of wacky start. Anyway, so finishing on this note, kind of a bad one, but I want to give a great mark to Cyberpunk 2077. It's an amazing game. It's actually an experience that you live only once in your life. There's something that other games are not giving you that much. The connection to the NPCs and all the characters that are around you, surrounding you. You know them very well, you know their strong and weak sides. This is why Cyberpunk 2077 is really good. Can you skip all these baggy moments and the graphics things? Technically you can, and it's not a big deal to reload the game. But at the same time, when you have a project of such a big ambitions, do you want to see that? Probably not. So being honest, from me, I would give Nvidia Cyberpunk 2077 experience 9 out of 10. Not mentioning the pulse-gen consoles because I haven't played on it. PS5, it's gonna be solid 8. Maybe 7.5 just because of how many times I'm literally getting out of the game when playing on it. But at the same time, it's an actually tool. I was about to finish the video but I'm still continuing. It's actually a very good tool to kind of like focus yourself on how much time you're spending in the game. I catch myself few times playing the game, then I have this bug, I'm going out of the game, and then what I see is basically I spent like 5 hours in the game. That's enough. So finishing on this, Cyberpunk 2077, 100 hours in the game, 9 out of 10. If you want to get a better experience, try it out maybe like in 3 months when the next gen version is coming in. I feel like the game will be more polished. Thank you very much everyone, it was Big Mike. Comment, subscribe, and we have a city to burn. Samurai.